Good Saturday evening to you. Welcome to another edition of the Press Club with me, Kendall Burton and Earl Bosque. We're looking at the big stories making the news every week. This week there's a lot to talk about, but first let's look at some of the headlines making today's papers. The Mirror newspaper, Shastney vindicated, judge dismiss government case against him. The subhead, demonic game, Ministry of Education bans demonic game in schools. That story made the Voice's main headline, Rampaging Charlie, demonic game plays havoc in the region, 5 injured in Grosley shootings. And the Star newspaper, the Lambert story still making news. Lambert's explodes. What does Emma's ISL, that ISL they're referring to, Investing Lucia CEO, know that the people don't know? And clouds hang over Cuba visa.
And Canel made available.
Let's not forget the government paper, edited by our good friend, Nationwide, investments in education yielding profitable returns. Where do we begin, Mr. Bosque? You bowl the first
in
ball.
something that my big story isn't in the headlines.
Yeah, which one
It's
is it?
the chicken war being put on pause.
Yeah.
I think that was a big story. The Shastney vindicated is a repetition of a statement that Mr. Shastney and his lawyer made. We'll go into that as to whether the statement, whether the ruling by the judge actually vindicates Mr. Shastney. The Lamberts explodes. It is more speculative and accusatory. In terms of, this is a comment on a statement issued by the CEO of Invest St. Lucia, and of course it's not the result of a journalistic inquiry or investigation. Rampaging Charlie would be the normal big headline for those of us who tend to go with the sexy flow. You know, if it's in the news all the time, then it becomes the big story. It is not that it is not a big story from the standpoint that the implications of it and what it causes, or what it has caused in terms of the consternation of parents, the bewilderment of the authorities to know that teachers are also involved in playing, quote-unquote, the demonic game. The system itself, including government and people, ought to be concerned about the effects on not just the school population but the society. And of course, as you indicated, the front page of the government's newspaper, Nationwide, picks up a story that nobody else has, and it has to do with the one of the offshore medical schools in St. Lucia, the oldest one, celebrating having a unique commencement ceremony offshore in Texas, but that in this case, in a situation where the story of offshore schools is all negative, at least there is a positive one that is actually showing that St. Lucians are benefiting from the presence of offshore schools, which are traditionally set up offshore to facilitate offshore clients. So my big story, like I said, is the chicken one, from the standpoint that it is an ongoing story that affects every St. Lucian, if not every St. Lucia household, from the standpoint that on Wednesday the 27th was supposed to be the day on which everything would have changed. Here you had the importers lining up behind the Chamber of Commerce, threatening to take unspecified actions that would have resulted in the price of chicken increasing for everybody. And on the other hand, you had the producers and the poultry farmers who were saying, hey, hello, the importers seem to want to make all the money by flooding the market with cheaper foreign chicken and leaving us, the local producers and farmers, to eat chicken feathers. So I think that the step taken by the government to uh, postpone implementation for another 6 weeks to give the sides a chance not only to talk to each other, but to convince the government even more as to whether it should revisit its position or not. The PS and the Minister of Agriculture, oh, let's start with the PS. The PS who made the announcement, said it was to give the warring factions time to smoke the peace pipe and come up with maybe a win-win situation. The Minister of Agriculture, in his presentation in the debate on the budget, said it was beyond the question of money. It was beyond the question of imported chicken versus local chicken. It had to do with food security. He introduced the health question. He also took some jabs at chicken back from the standpoint that its nutritional content is way below par vis-a-vis local chicken, and he questioned whether we should continue to be treated and regarded as a non-premium eating population.
But it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of these new round of discussions will be, because a difficult situation for all sides involved.
For all sides, yeah.
You know, because first of all, this is the main source of protein for most of our population who cannot afford the beef and the fish, you know, and the other more expensive sources. And let's make it clear, this is also a regional issue. It's not just St. Lucia, because we have the unfortunate situation where we happen to be between the U.S. and
Europe
and Brazil, actually,
and Brazil, sorry,
two of the biggest exporters of chicken. You know, and we had the situation where Russia and China, who were the biggest importers, are now also exporting, you know, large chunks. And Russia, I believe, has taken a stance where it has cut on U.S. imports. So it's a regional issue, a complaint across the region about the market being flooded with U.S. and foreign chicken. But how does the government now balance its commitment to protecting the private sector, the person of the Chamber of Commerce and its members, who have businesses to run, who are catching their royals and need to survive, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture balance of its obligation to protect the farmers and the producers of the poultry?
Well, that is where there's an interesting editorial in the Nationwide today called Chicken and Egg, which comes first. This can be applied in this situation. Do we get rid of imported chicken, which is cheaper, to force St. Lucians to purchase local chicken, which is better but more expensive? In an economic situation, will that be helping people live better lives, or rubbing people's noses into the dirt? Insofar as the importers are concerned, you talk about the right of the private sector to engage in business unrestricted. Importers ought to feel free to import and be part of world trade to the extent that the World Trade Organization exists to ensure and prevent governments from taking actions that are found, not deemed, but found to be stifling private sector investment and operation. I do know from my own investigations that the importers have been advised by their lawyers that the move taken by the government is not contrary to WTO rules, in that the government hasn't clubbed them on the head and said, hey, you have to do this, otherwise you're out of business.
So it would be interesting to know, because I don't know, and maybe you can shed some light on it, because perhaps you do. How do you arrive at the quota? Because it's a significant jump from 25% to 40%. You know, wouldn't that have been easier or more palatable to phase it in?
Yes, that is the argument of the importers. The importers are also saying that they can prove, and they have letters to indicate, that when it was 25%, the local producers were from time to time having problems providing that 25%, because it will take a little time, because we don't normally go behind, go in the foul cage. We wash below it, but we don't sleep in it. We smell the thing, but we don't see how it happens. The system is this: if you are an importer, and that system has been in place up under the 25%, you want to import $100 worth of chicken, you first have to buy 25% worth of local chicken.
Yeah.
When you get that receipt of having purchased it, you then go to the Ministry of Commerce to get a license to import your other 75%.
That's understood, yeah.
Today, it's now at 40%. It means that the 25% has been increased by 15%. That's how we see it. The importer sees it, that the quota that he has to buy locally has jumped by 66%. So the importers are claiming that they are being forced to subsidize local chicken. The local chicken people, the producers, the poultry farmers and the processors are saying, yes, local chicken will be more expensive because we have to buy the expensive chicken feed, we have to buy the equipment to process, we have to pay for the eggs, we have to pay the poultry farmers to do it. So the investment of the producers on a one-to-one basis is higher than that of the importer, who simply has to import frozen foods, store it and sell it. The importers and the producers are naturally glad about having a guaranteed 40% of the market. But it is not just a normal guaranteed 40%. It is a guaranteed 40% in the biggest chicken market in the OECS and CARICOM per head of population. So they have that automatic guarantee, which used to be a quarter, 25%, but which is now just under half, almost half. So we have to understand, like you have indicated, the issues affecting both sides. And I think that it will take more than just a mediator. This doesn't need a mediator. What it needs is a negotiation for an arrangement that will see everybody happy. It is easy to say, let's have a win-win situation where everybody is happy, but that is impossible without compromise. And it all depends on the extent to which the importers and the producers, all of whom are St. Lucians, all of whom are St. Lucians feed in the St. Lucia market, the extent to which those who are making the most are willing to suffer, quote-unquote, reduced profit margins in order to allow increased profit margins for common players in the same game, because all of them are interested in who? You and I and our family, the chicken people. One other point that hasn't been identified, Kendall, is where is chicken back in all of this? Because politically, the opposition would very much like to be able to see how it could further pluck that chicken situation as much as it could. In fact, I do know that the opposition is planning to make the whole chicken issue part of the Orange campaign. So there's as we speak, there's a demonstration in favor of chicken being planned. However, some of the people planning do not sufficiently understand the situation and have regretfully been informed that chicken back is not affected. From the standpoint that the importers import two sets of chicken, two sets of cheap chicken, premium parts, whole chicken, leg quarters, etc., etc., the things in box and well labeled. and there is non-premium, which is the chicken back. Now, chicken back is out of the league. The whole arrangement here has to do with only premium parts. So, whereas the importers, in order to reduce their losses, can shift the charges and the prices by charging more for the local chicken and more for the imported chicken, because we can't do without chicken. That would be, you know, the sort of thing that happens in commerce. You can shift where your charges are. In that sense, it would be true to say that the price of chicken can go up if the importers do not get their way or come out of the discussions with an arrangement that they are happy with. If they are unhappy, the price of chicken can and will go up. But I will say this, based on my exchanges with economists, that the price does not have to go up, because even at current prices, the importers are making such huge profits that if they elect to accept a 75% profit instead of 100% profit, then it would only mean that they would be saying, listen, I'll give away 25 cents on every dollar, or I'll sacrifice 25 cents on every dollar. But that is not how capitalism operates. That's not how commerce operates. And therefore, every investor in the main, 99.9%, is always out for the 100% profit margin. And if that profit margin of 100% is reduced to 99% next year, it is still regarded as a loss. So it is that sort of thinking that goes into it. But folks, chicken back is not involved. The price of chicken back ought not to go up. And if the price of chicken back goes up, everybody who pays more for chicken back has a reason to challenge whether, why, and how the price of chicken back went up, because chicken back is not included in the chicken that is in the poultry war.
All right, we're due for a break. We'll break. When we come back, we'll look at some of the other stories. I really want us to touch on this Charlie campaign and the Charlie challenge, as well as some of the other stories you mentioned earlier at the beginning of the program. We'll be right back.